In a moment, we'll hear from Citizens Advice and from a Dorset lady who's having lost everything in a house fire, says she only survives day to day because of help from food banks and the generosity of others. But first, what is universal credit and why is the £20 a week cut proving so controversial? Here's our Dorset political reporter, Tristan Pascoe.
According to government figures, there are 5.9 million people receiving universal credit payments across the UK, almost double the 3 million making claims before the pandemic. While some are seeking jobs and others unable to work, 40% of claimants are already employed, and these are in-work benefits. Work and Pensions Secretary Therese Coffey backed the cut and told BBC Breakfast last week claimants could recoup the £20 a week by working a couple of extra hours, pooh-poohed by opponents and charities. And there's pressure from all sides on the government to extend the uplift. 4 previous Work and Pensions Secretaries, including Ian Duncan Smith, architect of Universal Credit, have opposed the cut.
Local Citizens Advice Bureau branches have told us they've been inundated with requests for help. Zoe Blythe is a benefits officer from the Purbeck and East Dorset CAB and is also a housing benefits specialist.
It's not as simple as just taking off or giving an extra £20 on universal credit a week. There's so many other factors that feed into that. And one of the main problems is where people are struggling to meet their rent payments. We're seeing more and more families in rent arrears. The 2-bedroom local housing allowance in Purbeck is £174.90 a week. It's about £700 a month. You try and find a 2-bedroom house in Purbeck for £700 or less a month. It just doesn't exist. So we're looking at sort of £950. So straight away, you've got that £250 gap. So you take away that £80, it's just putting more and more pressure. People can't make their rent payments. They end up in rent arrears. They're then threatened with homelessness. It's not just £20 a week.
Joining me now is Abby Parker from Swanage. Abby, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Thanks for coming on the show. Tell me a little bit about your story, because you moved to Swanage for a new job.
Yeah, beginning of 2020, I moved down here to start a new job in March. Obviously, March rolled around and we went into a lockdown, so that unfortunately was delayed and then disappeared like a lot of other companies. They made redundancies and I wasn't able to start, so I have been relying on universal credit during that time, basically.
And coupled with that, you also had a house fire.
Yeah, it's been quite a traumatic start to the year, unfortunately, with my home being destroyed and everything in it. So the whole situation got a lot tougher, and I did think there would be support from the very system I'd paid into my entire working life, but unfortunately that has not proven to be the case for me.
Tell me a little bit about this £20 a week. How do you make sense of how that's going to impact your life?
It sounds like a small amount to some people maybe, but it's a huge, huge difference on a weekly and monthly basis. It's an extreme situation that we're in at the moment. Once you've covered your basic utilities, your gas, water, electric, council tax, of course you've got your mobile and Wi-Fi, which is essential now, especially in the lockdown, there really isn't much left for food. And you are forced to rely on food banks, which are quite literally a lifeline. And thank goodness to the general public for the generosity that they show, because most of us would not survive otherwise. And that's not okay, is it?
What are you going to do? What's your plan here? Because you're losing that vital £80. Do you have a strategy? Because the government's obviously coming out and saying, we want people, perhaps if they're working, to do a few more hours. We're going to motivate more jobs on the jobs market and get it easier for people to find work and get off universal credit. So that's all going on in the background. But what are you going to do as your plan?
I mean, basically, you have to monitor and assess every bit of energy that you use. So you have to work out how many showers can I have? Can I switch the boiler on to have hot water for a shower? Because that's expensive. How many times can I use the washing machine or the dryer? Can I even afford to turn the heating on as we're going into autumn, winter and it's getting colder? Because these basic necessities that we take for granted, when you have that money taken away, suddenly become a luxury and you have to live at a very basic level. So that's the reality of it.
Is it possible to get out of this? When you look at other jobs, is it a constant pen and paper job where you try and work out whether that would be okay and how long that transition would take if you took that other job? or do you just think to yourself, I've just got to get through this bit of the year and start afresh in January?
It's really a week-by-week situation. It's hard to plan long-term at the moment, especially for myself, because my situation is quite extreme, having, to start again. I'm still in temporary accommodation. Since the fire, I don't even know where I will be next. So it's hard to go and apply for a job when you don't know where you're going to be, or if it's going to be completely out of area. So there's practical considerations. And these general brushstrokes that they're using for the entire population really don't work.
Yeah, I wonder how you cut. Do you watch the news? Do you watch what's happening, or do you decide you're going to have to switch that off because it's impacting your life in such an extreme way?
Yeah, I don't watch TV or anything like that. I'll get my news online and keep up to date with obviously what's happening. But I mean, they're showing a callous disregard for the people who need the most help and support, even if that's short term. And, maybe they should walk a mile in our shoes and gain some actual insight and awareness of the effects that their decision-making process is having. And most importantly, who are these government ministers working on behalf of? Because it certainly isn't we, the people, who have spent our entire working lives paying into this system, which from my perspective seems to be endemically corrupt.
Abby Parker from Swanage. Abby, thank you for joining me on the show this morning, sharing her story and the impact of the £20 that goes from today. That £20 uplift, it's called by the government. The government have said, we've always made it clear that uplift to universal credit was temporary. It was designed to help claimants through the economic shock and financial disruption of the toughest stages of the pandemic, and it has done just that. If you are on universal credit and that £20 is going for you today, I would love to hear your story. If you're happy to share it with me, the free phone number 0808 100 3800.